Hello, I'm Tom Bailey, and in today's episode, I'll be getting to know Annemarie Cross, who is the CEO and founder of the Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast Network and the Industry Thought Leader Academy. So, Annemarie, hello, and a very warm welcome to today's episode.
Thank you so much, Tom. Great to be here.
I really appreciate you coming along. And just out of interest for our listeners, whereabouts are you in the world right now?
Melbourne, Australia.
Incredible. Thank you so much. And let me just share a little bit more about you before we do get started. So, Annemarie is a personal branding and podcast strategist and business coach and was recently cited as the top 20 business coach in Melbourne and is also an award-winning podcast host. The title for today's episode is How to Become Distinguishable, Uncopyable, and Irresistible, even if you're in a crowded marketplace. And Annemarie is going to show us how to do that in just 7 minutes. So question number one for you today is, who are your ideal clients?
My ideal clients, Tom, are coaches and consultants of service-based businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them, they want to make a much bigger impact in the world, their sphere of influence with their message, and they're my ideal clients.
Awesome. And when you think of your ideal clients, what would you say is typically the biggest challenge that they face?
The biggest challenge, and often what I hear him or her say, is I feel like the world's best kept secret. I have an incredible body of knowledge, expertise. I've done many certifications, yet despite all of what I'm doing and the marketing that I'm doing, I still feel like the world's best kept secret. They struggle to stand out in a crowded marketplace. And as we know, so many more coaches and consultants now are marketing online, which has made the marketplace far more competitive and far more noisy. So typically that's a challenge.
Excellent. I know the feeling. A lot of people I work with have fears of public speaking, so it's very much the same as, being hidden in the industry.
Yeah.
So if you are the best kept secret in the industry and the marketplace is getting even more crowded, what impact will that typically have on your clients if they took no action?
Well, typically you find, or I have found that because many of my clients are business owners that are selling their expertise, it can typically go two ways. One, they can continue to kind of adopt bright, shiny objects, that syndrome. They get even more and more frustrated and overwhelmed because they're trying to do all of the things, or they end up just not doing anything because to them, it's more, well, no one's listening to me, therefore I'm no good, and therefore it must be what I'm sharing. So it can either go those two ways, but it leads to frustration. It leads to overwhelm. And we know that as a service-based business, overwhelm and frustration are not two words that we want to use when we describe our business and how we're feeling.
No, absolutely not. Yes, it's definitely a critical problem to solve. So if there is somebody listening to this and they do feel like the world's best kept secret, what's that one piece of advice that you'd give to them to really help them get started?
Well, I hinted at it earlier, and that is be mindful and be wary, I should say, of the bright, shiny objects and marketing tactics that may seem really great for other people, yet maybe not so great for them because it depends on where they're at in their business stage. And their unique circumstances might be very different from, say, some of their colleagues or even some of the mentors that they're looking at hiring. So, so many speakers, I'm sure you're told, you need to share your content on social media, get across many podcasts as you can, maybe even start your own podcast. But if one of the reasons you're looking to do that marketing activity is because you feel like the world's best kept secret and you're sharing your message in a group of your ideal clients and that message isn't working, well, then don't look at amplifying that message, particularly not on a podcast, because yes, your podcast will amplify your message, but it will amplify a message that's not working, which means more people will get to know and hear your confusing message. So I'm sure you've heard that saying, Tom, right tactic, wrong timing. So my advice would be find out where that is for you. The gap is for you. What is it that is stopping you from becoming known, becoming heard, and becoming, that influential and trusted authority in your industry, and then work on that. And then eventually your message will start to build momentum and you'll become known as that trusted authority.
Absolutely. It's so important. Get the right message in front of the right market, and then things will start to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So to help people with all of this, what is one resource or somewhere that you can point people to help them solve this problem?
Well, I have got a resource which I created, and it's called How to Become Distinguishable, Uncopyable, and Irresistible, even if you're in a crowded marketplace.
Nice.
And I do know that you've got the link to share with people as well. That's a really great resource. There's a number of elements that you want to make sure are in place. Remember, I said find out where you're stuck so
Mhm.
that you can focus on getting that in place first and then start to share that message. And so that'll give you a really nice overview of what you need to have in place, and then be able to identify, well, look, I need to work on this first so that I can make sure that when I do speak or when I do go on a podcast interview, I know that I'm speaking directly to my ideal client. So that's a great resource that I would recommend they start.
Fantastic. And I'll just read that link out for people. So it's industrythoughtleaderacademy.com/distinguishable message. And what I'll do is I'll put that into the show notes of this episode as well, so people can click on that and they can get right started.
Terrific.
So next question, it's more aimed at yourself, this one. So what would you say is one of your greatest either mistakes or failures you've made, either in life or business? And what did you learn from it?
Oh, well, I have my worst business failure ever story as well.
Yeah.
But I can say that that worst business failure ever, when I say we, I had a partnership and we built the partnership up to a 7-figure pipeline. And unfortunately, I
Mhm.
won't go into all the details, that came to an end. But that particular event actually catapulted me along the path to where I am today. So I can say that it is now the best thing that ever happened to me. However, what I learned was that I had two choices, and I'm one of those people that will look at a situation and say, well, this can either make me or break me, and breaking me is not a choice.
Yeah.
So it had to make me, and getting the support, realizing that, look, this was a failure, and embrace failures, because they can be the best things that can happen to you, because you kind of can use that as a learning and a growth opportunity. So hire the right mentors to get you
Mhm.
ahead, because you don't want to get stuck in that, kind of that rush. And the learnings that you can take away from those failures often can be the message that you share that gives you your unique message that you will continue to use moving forward, that you'll help your clients with, because I bet you other people are going through that same challenge and same experience.
Absolutely. Such a fantastic mentality to have when it comes to mistakes and failures. So the last question from me today is, what is the one question that I should have asked you that'll also bring some great value to our audience today?
All right. So, how do you tell? This is the question that I would pose: is how can you tell if your story or your message is unique and uncopyable by other
Great
coaches and
question.
speakers? And so, an
Mhm.
example that I would give: if you think about your current message and story, and one of your competitors were to take that same message, take your name out of it, put their name in, and be able to, with some relevance and some, same, not just relevant, but truth, be able to
Mhm.
share that story, because it kind of shares a little bit about their background and how they got to where they were now. Then guess what? You're not uncopyable, you're actually
Yeah.
copyable. And you want to
Mhm.
make sure that you spend a little bit more time really narrowing in and focusing on what is going to make you uncopyable. And you'll be able to do that by going to the link that you shared earlier and going through that masterclass that I shared, because that's where I'll cover some of the key aspects that will enable you with your message, and all of that area become uncopyable in your industry.
Fantastic. So important and such great value in just under 7 minutes. So really appreciate you coming along today, Annemarie. And again, thanks for sharing that knowledge with our audience.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's been a pleasure.